Every beginner hits this moment. You did something. You expected a result, and nothing happened. No error, no feedback, no obvious explanation. This moment causes confusion, not because the system is broken, but because the mental model is. Most people respond by guessing. They imagine invisible activity. They assume something must have happened somewhere. Here is a natural assumption that creates most early frustration. If something exists, it should act. If software exists, it should do something. If memory exists, it should update. But existence doesn't create motion. A file sitting in storage is not behavior, and a workspace being available is not progress. Systems don't act by default. They wait for a trigger and the right moment. The beginner trap is treating presence as activity, then hunting for effects that never occurred. Let's replace that assumption with a better one. Behavior requires an execution event. Let's define software without code. Software is a description of possible behavior. Instructions, rules, and steps that could be followed. But instructions don't move by themselves. They don't initiate. They don't create change just because they exist. Software can be perfectly correct, perfectly complete, and still do nothing for years. That isn't a defect. It's nature. Until execution begins, software is inert, like a recipe on the counter. It can be brilliant, but dinner only happens when someone cooks it. That someone is execution. Now memory. Memory is storage, a workspace where values can be placed so they can be read and written while something is running. Memory is not intention. It does not think, decide, or update itself. If nothing interacts with memory, memory stays the same. It can hold old values, empty space, or leftovers, but it does not create behavior. Memory reflects what happened during execution. It never makes execution happen. So when you expect memory to change on its own, you're assigning it a job it never had. Storage holds results. It does not generate actions. So if software doesn't act and memory doesn't self-update, what causes behavior? The missing ingredient is execution. Execution is the event where the system follows the software's instructions and interacts with memory. Execution turns software from a description into action. During execution, the system reads memory, writes memory, and produces effects you can observe. Without execution, software remains instructions and memory remains storage. This relationship is the foundation for what you'll learn later. Software describes what could happen. Memory stores what did happen. And execution decides whether anything happens at all. Example 1. Imagine a music player installed on your computer. The software exists. The machine has memory, yet no music played until you press play. Why? Because software is capability and memory is workspace. But neither causes action. Pressing play triggers execution. Until that trigger, nothing runs, so nothing changes. Player can be perfectly installed and be silent. This maps to direct programming confusion. can have all the pieces present and still no behavior. The missing part is the event starts execution, not more software and not more memory. Execution is also temporal. Execution is temporal. It happens, then it stops. After it stops, software still exists and memory still exists, but behavior ends. This explains the common beginner thought: it worked once, so why isn't it working now? Because the past event ended. Execution does not linger like a permanent force. It's more like a burst of activity that comes and goes. When execution ends, only the results remain in memory. Track events and outcomes, not the mere existence of software, and not the mere existence of memory. Example 2. You open a photo editor, make one change, start the screen expecting it to keep improving the image. It won't. The software exists. Memory holds the current image state, but unless you trigger another action, nothing new happens. Past execution produced the current state, but it does not guarantee current execution. This past versus present distinction prevents a lot of confusion later. If nothing is changing now, your first explanation should be simple. No new execution is occurring. The system isn't being stubborn. It's being consistent. Here's the foundation habit. Don't blame software first, and don't blame memory first. Software rarely explains nothing happened because software can exist without acting. Memory rarely explains nothing because memory can exist without changing. When behavior is missing, execution is the first suspect. Did an execution event occur? If not, there's nothing to debug yet. There's a missing trigger, a blocked permission, or a path that never started. This habit keeps you from inventing explanations. It keeps you grounded in what can actually cause behavior: an execution event. To make this practical, use one question whenever you're confused. What ran? Notice how that question connects everything. If nothing ran, software stayed inert, memory stayed the same. If something ran, then look for what changed in memory afterward. This is the opposite of guessing. You're not imagining what the system should have done. You're grounding yourself in events and evidence. This becomes instinct. Prove execution first, then inspect what remains. This is why we teach this before code, before syntax, before any programming language. If you don't understand the relationship, you'll misread everything that comes later. You'll stare at instructions and expect them to act. You'll stare at storage and expect it to decide. Once you have the foundation, new topics snap into place. Branches become different possible events. Loops become repeated execution events. Names become labels for stored values. And bugs become concrete. Either the wrong execution happened or no execution event happened. This foundation is not trivia. It's the map. Here's the full picture in one chain. Software provides a description. Execution activates the description. Memory reflects the result. Remove execution, and the chain breaks. Software stays as possibility. Memory as storage. Behavior disappears. This is the connection you need. You're not memorizing parts. You're learning causality. When you keep this chain in mind, you start expecting events. And when events don't happen, you know exactly why nothing changed. The chain never activated. That single explanation will prevent hours of beginner confusion later. Lock it in with one sentence. Nothing happens without execution. Software and memory can exist with no behavior. Execution is the event that turns possibility into reality and leaves behind state. Remember this? You'll learn everything else faster because you'll always ask the right questions. Did anything run? In the next lesson, we'll zoom in on state, what it looks like, how it persists, and how execution changes over time. Stop assuming behavior. Start proving execution.